in last Saturday night against Virginia because it looked like a recruiting trip for the King. He addressed that with our Dave McMenamin, saying, a recruiting trip? I didn't talk to anybody. They're only saying that because it's Rich. When Shaq came to see me play in high school, when AI came to see me play in high school, they weren't saying that it was a recruiting trip then, but because it's Rich Paul and LeBron, now it's a recruitment trip. Now Rich is a threat to everybody. Stephen A. Is he recruiting Zion?
I don't think they were recruiting him that day, but the reality is this. LeBron James and Rich Paul are being heavily scrutinized. In the case of Rich Paul, I would make the argument that it's not unfair. There's a game within a game that's played in every business, in every walk of life. And if Rich Paul is playing it better than most, get the hell over it. It's just that simple. He's doing what he's doing. But I will say this. I do not want to hear LeBron James or Rich Paul, because I think it was LeBron James that said to Dave McMenamin, throw in the fact that he's black as well. That part is nonsense. Here's why. Some of the elite agents in the business representing NFL players. Bill Duffy is one of the best to ever do it. He's black. Henry Thomas, God rest his wonderful soul, who passed away last year. He represented D. Wade, Chris Bosh, and others. He's black. Years ago with the Bill Stricklands of the world, representing Rasheed Wallace and others, he was black. The Goodwin brothers, Aaron and Eric, elite in this business. To this day, they are also black. So you can make the argument about people scrutinizing Rich Paul and doing so unfairly. And I have no problem with it until you bring up race. Race has nothing to do with that. What has something to do with it is that unlike Shaq, unlike AI, there is a direct correlation and the relationship between Rich Paul and LeBron James, because people believe LeBron James is clutch sports. They don't believe Rich Paul is quote unquote representing LeBron. They believe LeBron James is clutch sports, which means that somehow, some way, he's benefiting from the clientele that they ultimately accumulate. And because of that is why the scrutiny is coming. I don't think Rich Paul deserves it. He's just doing his job. I don't think that LeBron James and Rich Paul should be scrutinized for going to see Zion Williamson, because it's perfectly within their right to do it. But you have to anticipate that the scrutiny is going to come, and that race has nothing to do with it in this case.
As is often the case on this show, I have prepared statements to make about this, tell you how I feel. But you said something interesting that I want to respond to. I want to do that first.
Sure.
You're right about claims of racism. It is important not to dilute them with claims where it's not merited, because it dilutes legitimate claims which actually exist and fogs the picture.
Correct.
So if that's the way you feel about it, and you don't think race plays a part, I think it's important that you say that. I hadn't thought about it along those lines. This is how I think about it. Is LeBron James not allowed to develop a relationship with a peer in the near future, with a colleague in the near future? When people say recruiting Zion, to what? His agency? Because it's not to the team. Zion will play where he is drafted. LeBron's got nothing to do with that. That's one. Two, if you think LeBron is clutch and therefore there's a conflict of interest and they are tampering at times with things, this is what I have to say to teams around the league who make that claim. Prove it or shut up. Prove it or shut up. Just like I'm sitting here saying, yeah, the Lakers are being tampered with. You hear rumors around the league, hey, don't send them to the Lakers. But the league could easily say, hey, prove it. You know, we don't prove that we don't think their offer was good enough. Oh, you can't, right? So shut up. Now the shoe's on the other foot. You can't have it both ways. If you can't prove that is a conflict of interest, if they're not breaking any rules, but you just assume behind the scenes Rich Paul and LeBron James, and how would we ever prove that? That's right. You can't. Shut up. Next.
Look, the reality is it happens with every star player. Michael Jordan, his agent was able to track other players because of his fame. Magic Johnson is going to be able to get meetings with players, star players. Ben Simmons looking to reach out to meet with Magic Johnson because he's Magic Johnson. LeBron James has that effect. As far as Rich Paul, you got to take your hats off to LeBron, because as much as it's a plus, it can be looked at as a minus. Normally, when players hire their friends or their family, it doesn't work out. In this situation, Rich Paul, Mav Carter, these guys are all competent to do their job. It is a storm. It's a mess, but it's actually working out. And LeBron James, he's a sports fan. You'll see him at an Ohio State game, a Cowboys game.
Baseball game.
Right? Yeah. He went and watched Steph Curry when Steph was killing it in the tournament. This man is a fan of sports. So, I mean, I don't get it. This is just part of the territory.
Well, I would say this. I get it. I agree with you and I agree with Max in terms of how people should feel, but I do get it. And the reason why I say you get it, because whether it's from competitive agents, whether it's from team executives who like certain agents more than they do others or whatever, it's very, very predictable what's transpiring. And what LeBron James and Rich Paul have every right to highlight is people try to diminish his boys at every turn.
Yep.
Maverick Carter is a brilliant brother. Rich Paul has done a brilliant job in building his brand with Clutch Sports and what have you. Randy Mims and what he's been able to do as LeBron's trusted friend. You know, Adam Medelson working in LeBron James' kid. LeBron James is a savant and brilliant beyond measure, not just as a basketball player, but as a businessman, and deserves our respect. But what comes along with that is that when you have a connection as a player to an agency where you're believed to be that agency, then people start talking about the unfair advantage that provides you, how it pretty much squashes the competition, and they're going to come for you. So if you're going to make an argument to ward that off, just don't bring up race, because you're implying that it's happening to Rich Paul because he's black, when in fact there's a plethora of black agents it doesn't happen to who are in opposition to Rich Paul, who feels the same way that white agents feel about Rich Paul. You got to deal with all of that. And that's just what the situation is. That's the real of it.
Yeah, and nobody complains about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is a owner of an NBA basketball team. He also has the first right to take a look at high school athletes. He has a high school all-star game. Not
but
only that,
opposing owners have complained about Michael.
They complain about it, but it's not the same.
I know that, but they complained is all I'm trying to say. They complain too.
But it's part of the territory.
Yes.
Michael has built an empire, so why complain about what he's built? Just go and do it yourself.
Or Coach K, you complain about the Olympic team, and my point about Coach K, well, it's an unfair thing, recruiting for Duke. My point is, if Coach K is the best coach, you know what I have to say to all the other coaches who don't get to coach the Olympic team? Tough. Right, he's the reason people want to play it. It's an advantage that is successful.
I just want to make sure what the audience recognizes what you just brought up. That's different to me. Coach K, to me, there are plenty of coaches in college basketball who could have won a gold medal with the dream team caliber athletes that Coach K had available to him in 2008, 2012, 2016. My problem with Coach K was not that he coached it, is that he coached it all three times, because you cannot tell me that from a recruiting perspective that USA Basketball, by naming Coach K the coach, doesn't give him a decided advantage over all those other college programs.
I get that point. What I'm saying is this. If I'm USA Basketball, I don't care if I think we can also win with this coach or that coach or this player or that player, because when we started degrading the team little by little over time, then the world started beating us. Then we got back to let's get our very best. I'm saying this. I don't care if it's fair to the lesser coaches. If the consideration is Coach K is the best, he gives us our best chance to win, then the fact that also helps him recruit is tough luck for the lesser coaches.
I'm saying too, that should not have been allowed.
Everybody can't do it, though. It's about respect. They demand Coach K. They want Coach K. LeBron wants Coach K. Kobe wants Coach K.
And by the way, do you think Zion Williamson didn't like it when LeBron shows up to their games? Yes. More than when others show up to their games? Yes, because LeBron is better than the others. They like it. That is part of the compounding advantages of success. I don't see what the complaint in this case is.
Well, listen, in this case, I totally agree with you. I don't see what the case is. But generically speaking, the fact is that we live in America and in a world of sports more so than anything else. We try to entertain the notion of the closest thing to a meritocracy. And when something is so flagrantly imbalanced in certain ways,
when they take advantage of it,
people are going to complain. That's just a given.
It's not
All
fair.
I'm saying is that it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. Absolutely. Anticipate it. Shrug it off your shoulders, like you said, for the most part. I don't agree with you with Coach K and the Olympic and the Dream Team, but everything else, I'm totally with both of you. But let's not act like it's a surprise, and let's not bring up race where it isn't warranted. Save it for when it is.
What you're
Guys.
saying is don't play the race card.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
But
Correct.
identify racism
That's
where it
right.
exists.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
All right, we ready to transition?
Let's go.
I want to talk some MVP. How do you guys feel about it? MVP this season. I've heard Paul George. I've heard Giannis. I've heard James Harden. Who would you get your vote right now? Make your case.
For me, Paul George. Paul George, to me, if I had to vote, I'm not saying it's going to happen because you still got 20-some-odd games, and I think it's close enough. But if I had to vote right now, Paul George and the way that he has looked on both sides of the ball, on both ends of the floor, the way Oklahoma City has looked as a result, Paul George, to me, is the league MVP right now.
Look.
He looks that sensational.
Ryan, I know you're champing at the bit. Hang in. The answer is unambiguously the Greek freak. Now, Giannis Antetokounmpo, his team has basically wire to wire had the best record in the NBA all season. Name another great player. I like Middleton a whole lot. He's a real good player, a bubble all-star kind of level player. Name another superstar he's playing with. And yet wire to wire in the much improved East, they're first because Budenholzer realized we're going to give it to the Greek freak. This man is either going to get doubled and he's going to find the open man because he's one of the best passers in the league and he's 7 feet tall and can put it on the floor and make decisions with the ball. But if they don't double him, he's going to yam it on you 100% of the time. There is nothing you can do. And he plays defense too, by the way. And for the complaints that, well, he doesn't shoot. That's right. You know what that means? He doesn't shoot. It means he's only the best player in the game today.
Hey, Max.
If he shot, he'd be the best player who ever lived. I mean, like, what do you want the man to do?
For one, that's a big if. For one, he doesn't close games. For two, he's in the Eastern Conference. And three, I don't know how either you don't look at James Harden for two reasons: history and adversity. The one thing that James Harden has done, he's creating history. He broke Wilt Chamberlain's record. And this is not a big man. This isn't a guy who plays crash ball. He's shooting a step-back three-point shot, which is arguably the toughest shot in basketball. We've never seen it. When I say adversity, Stephen A., who on his team has been healthy? Chris Paul's been out. Eric Gordon's been out. Capella's been out. Most valuable player.
My response to that, James Harden is on my list. I said it was a close race. He's been absolutely sensational. And I guess for me, what I'm thinking about with him is that I think he's being run into the ground by Mike D'Antoni. I'm very, very concerned about it. And I'm not confident he'll be able to sustain this level of success. I'm not taking anything of credit away from him on the offensive end of the floor, but we know what he doesn't do defensively. Paul George does it on both ends of the floor. We got some news, by the way. What did I tell you?
What?
Dell Demps. Woj just tweeted, Dell Demps, New Orleans Pelicans just got let go. General manager. They're parting ways.
For that, he should have traded Anthony Davis.
They're parting ways.
Wow.
For that, he should have traded AD after all.
Adrian Wojnarowski just tweeted that they parted ways. I told you.
Well, by the way, no, you said that if he traded AD, they were going to get rid of him. So he doesn't trade AD. So now they don't get maybe the best.
I said he was in trouble any way you slice it, but it was out. I said he was in trouble any way you slice it,
but it was out. And if Woj has it, it's gospel.
It's gospel.
Hey, for one, it's a mess over there. They should have traded. And you know what the reality is? I don't think they get a better offer than the Lakers are going to give them at the half. I don't think the Celtics are going to do it.
That's right, because it's a one-year rental.
See,
Tatum ain't going nowhere.
And they still going to send them to someplace other than L.A.
Yep. On a one-year rental, they're going to get a lesser deal. Good job, Pelicans.
Somebody